Dear Black people, you need to be on a budget. Before you roll your eyes or become anxious, hear me out. In my opinion, the 70-30 rule is one of the most effective ways to reduce the wealth gap for Black people. The objective is to live on 70% of what you make while using the remaining 30% to build your savings, invest, and give back to others who are less fortunate. For many of us, 30% may be too large given the numerous expenses we have and the large amount of debt we've incurred. So we may need to use smaller percentages at first. Budgeting can help identify how much we have after we pay everybody we don't like. Budgeting is critical to your financial independence. It is next to impossible to be financially independent and sustain a level of prosperity without one. However, a budget is not hard to create. You don't need to be overly complicated or fancy. This can be done in Excel, on paper, or any other medium you feel comfortable with. The most important thing is to be honest with yourself as it relates to your spending. This is a scary moment for many of us, since it pops the balloon on the fantasy world most of us have been living in. In this case, ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is poverty. The math is simple, and so is the formula. Income minus expenses gives you the amount you can use to build your financial freedom. First, start off with your monthly salary after taxes. Include any additional income you may earn that month, but don't over-exaggerate. This is your total monthly income. Next, add up all your monthly expenses. This is where you must write down all your expenses, even small bills like Netflix. All expenses count and nothing should be ignored. The most common breakdown in budgeting is ignoring expenses, so I can't stress this enough. Everything that forces you to depart with your money should be an expense. Finally, simply subtract your total expenses from your total income. There is a good chance you will not like the result, but remember, to once be ignorant about your finances is not the problem. To stay ignorant about your finances once they've been presented to you is the problem. To show you how easy it is to create a budget, I simply Googled monthly budget template, and hundreds of examples popped up. So do what works for you. The key here is to just get started and get started on a monthly budget. As Black people, we don't have the luxury of doing a budget in our heads. Put it down on paper every month and stick to it. So I know what you're thinking. I created a budget and I realized I have no money left over. Now what do I do? From my experience, there's usually 3 reasons why you have no money left over after you pay all your bills. The first is the most obvious, but I would argue the most deceptive. Most people think if they could only increase their income, that would change all their problems. Well, that may be, but if I was a betting man, I would say that it wouldn't. The reason is because money is more about behavior than it is about math, and behavior teaches us that even if you increase your income, you will likely increase your spending to compensate. So in reality, you won't end up saving anything additional. Only with a disciplined behavior will extra income help you. The second reason for having little money left over is that you have too many expenses. These are the recurring costs every month that just eat away at your bank account. My advice is take a hard look at these expenses and figure out what can be cut. Do you really need 2 gym memberships? Don't laugh. This actually happens. Use that axe and start cutting expenses off your financial tree. Get rid of the miscellaneous expenses you don't really need or use. The goal here is to free up money. Lastly, the third reason why you have no money left over is because of debt. Let me be very honest with you. I think debt is modern day slavery, and it disgusts me how much as we as Black people get caught up in these scams. In subsequent videos, I'll share some debt payoff methods that may be beneficial to you. However, the first thing to recognize about debt is that it comes in different names: credit card payments, financing a car, leasing a car, student loans, medical bills, mortgage payments. All of these are debt, and all of these must be addressed with vigor. So why create a budget? It sounds great, but is it really needed? Let's be honest with ourselves. The majority of us are not on a budget. So let's take a look at some statistics. During the 2008 financial crisis, Blacks and Hispanics lost 50% of their net worth. COVID may or may not have the same impact, but during every recession, and we are in a recession, these two groups are the most affected by economic downturns. The unemployment rate for COVID has disproportionately affected both Blacks and Hispanics. The national unemployment average is 11% in June of 2020. However, among Blacks and Hispanics, the unemployment rate is closer to 15%. Also, there was a study done in January of 2020, which was pre-COVID, that noted that more than 25% of US adults reported an emergency expenditure within the last 12 months. 50% were greater than $2,500. So ask yourself, can you cover a $5,000 emergency expense right now in all cash? You see, budgeting allows for major expenditures to become minor inconveniences. Here's a sensitive topic that must be addressed within our community. You may live with someone, and they can be your significant other, your fiance, or even your spouse. However, they may not be on board with budgeting. So let me be clear. You must both budget. There can be no excuses. By living with someone, you have inherently entered a financial partnership with them. It is no longer a relationship based on emotions. It is now based on finances as well. You both must have financial goals, and they must be in line with each other. Their expenses are your expenses. Their debt is your debt. Think of a car with 4 flat tires. If you replace the 2 front ones, sure, they look good and you will see progress. However, the car is still not drivable without addressing the back 2 tires. Well, if one spouse is on a budget and the other is not, you will always remain financially in place and not achieve your financial goals as a partnership. You see, couples who budget together stay together. So to close, I'll leave you with a quote from Dave Ramsey. A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. You must gain control over your money, or the lack of it will forever control you, because a part of all that you earn is yours to keep.